Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the November 16th, 2017 Benicia Unified School District Board meeting. At this time, would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as listed. I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes. We got a highlight tonight, and I think it's the people in orange.
Hello, people in orange. All right, well, hello, look at those beautiful children out there. So, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Good evening, trustees and team. So, I'd like to welcome Principal Christina Moore to the podium, and she will explain why all these beautiful children are joining us this evening.
Emphasis on beautiful, right?
Yes.
So Robert Semple celebrated a theme of kindness last week, actually all the month of November. We had spirit days, we had assemblies, daily classroom kindness activities, personal challenges, and even had a group of parents on Sunday afternoon chalk up our whole school with wonderful messages of encouragement and kindness and love. We commenced our week with a whole school kindness dance that was unifying, empowering, and moving. Robert Semple Student Council would like to demonstrate a short snippet of that dance. So if you boys and girls would stand up, and you're going to face Miss Leah that direction. And while they get in formation, just so you know, many of us have seen the Life Fest video, the Paying It Forward, and this is a division of that. And Justin Cole is the creator of this dance, and it went across 50, all 50 states, 50 countries on Sunday. So it was wonderful.
How long is this? Just a couple minutes?
Yes.
Let's have them do it twice. Do it this way, then turn around and face your parents.
Do you know how nervous they are?
We're easy.
Let's get through it once. Take a bow, take a bow. There you go.
Great job.
So I want you to know that we have approximately 468 students, but we had over 500 people on our blacktop that did this that day. It was wonderful. So hopefully we can spread the message to all 4 elementaries next year. That's a challenge.
You guys want to do it for your parents, or yes?
You can also see it on Facebook on our website.
I know.
You should send it back.
So many things I see that I would like to remedy and save the world from this insanity. And if we all could shift our focus on the positive, we'd know the answer is to live and let live. Life's a puzzle incomplete, and everybody is a piece. Through empathy and human kindness, we'd be the change we wish to see. This is our world, and the revolution has begun. With open hearts we can see ourselves in everyone. Come and join us in a revolution of love. Let's come together.
Thank you.
Good job, everybody.
Good job.
That was amazing.
At this time, we will move on to student reports.
Hi, I'm Christian Chavez, the ASB Vice President here at Benicia High School, and I will be talking about our past events. So we just had our advanced dance show, which was a big success. We had great performances from our students, actors, and we even had our storyline written by a student, which was Wasim by Derekith. And for moving on to sports, football made it to the playoffs. However, their playoff berth was cut short on our first game. And along with that, we had our girls tennis team make it to the second round of the playoffs, which was the furthest that they've made it in quite some time. And then our cross-country girls team actually won leagues this year. And our volleyball team made it to playoffs. And last Thursday, we held our Veterans Day ceremony in the quad. We had a good turnout of students, and they all came to pay their respects to all the veterans. And last Saturday, I believe, our band performed at the Merced Band Review and won in parade marching sweepstakes, parade music sweepstakes, parade Greg Christensen sweepstakes, and first place in auxiliary and jazz competition sweepstakes. So that was a big success for them. Moving on.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Torres. I'm the ASB president at Benicia High. Some upcoming events at our school. Our winter sports are now practicing in preseason competition, wrestling, basketball, and soccer. Thanksgiving break is about to begin. We're all excited about that. Our band review is this Saturday in Fairfield. The weekend after we get back from break, leadership's going to be decorating the school for all the holidays. Our fall play opens on Friday, December 1st, with performances that weekend and the following weekend. Friday and Saturday shows at 7 p.m. and one Sunday show on the December 3rd at 2 p.m.
Hi, my name is Janessa and I'm from Liberty. And now I'm going to talk about present events, I guess. So I just came back from the CAC dinner at the Clock Tower and I felt like that was really fun and I felt like it was a really good turnout. A lot of seniors we got to help and serve dinner to. This food was really good, by the way. The blood drive on 11/3 was actually really successful. A lot of students we didn't know actually came out and started giving blood on the day before and turning in their permission slips, so that was good. And our basketball team is still in the league, and we are really happy about that. One of our students, Chloe DeRocher, will be speaking for a presentation at Girls State, and I forgot what it is, but I know that she's really excited for it. My bad. My bad. 12. Yeah, okay. I'm glad someone knows what it is. And on 12/20, our holiday dinner will be coming up, and that was the only future event that we have so far. And we want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Superintendent report?
Yeah, very good. So, well done, guys. So, just a couple of items. This week, I attended the Solano County School Board's dinner, and it was an opportunity for the superintendents and the members of that board to hear about career and technical education programs that are taking place throughout the Solano County. And another item that I would like to share, which I thought was really cool, is Brianna Kleinschmidt, principal of the high school. She said, Dr. Young, Charles, you have to check this out. There's a podcast group. It's called School Links. It's a college and career readiness platform for middle and high school students, and it guides students through self-discovery, career exploration, and college planning. And Ms. Kleinschmidt was invited to be part of a podcast with this group, and it was a 45-minute interview, and it was really terrific. And the title of it was Changing from How to Wow, the Path to Higher Ed. And so I encourage you to listen to it. It's very insightful, and here's some interesting ideas about the work that's taking place under Ms. Kleinschmidt's leadership over there at the high school. And the link, I think we said, Betty, it's on the website. It's not there yet. We'll put it up and you can check it out. All right, very good. That's it for me. I think we have just a few items that we wanted to move through tonight at a good pace, and I wanted to wish everybody a wonderful Thanksgiving break.
Thank you. Right. Board reports? Sure.
I went to the Benicia Middle School Viking concert band concert dinner. And it was great. It was really fun. The bands did a great job. A ton of people were there. I think they raised a bunch of money. It was a good turnout. That's it. I can tell we're...
Thank you, and I want to thank our high school. I was at the Veterans Day ceremony, and being a vet, you guys you touched all of us. The ceremony itself, but also the amount of students who came up afterwards and said thank you for your service. And I should have mentioned it while Robert Semple was here, but I've already went and talked to the class who did all that. They had letters to vets, and when we walked in after the ceremony to have lunch together, they were all on the table, and they were greatly, it showed their appreciation, but I think they were more excited when I actually showed up and I was introduced as a school board, but when I said, that's not what I'm here for, I'm here as a veteran, and all their eyes got really big and they all had smiles. I said, And I had a stack of their letters. I said, I just want to say thank you for doing this. I said, every one of us who sat in that room was touched by their letters. So that whole ceremony, between the ceremony and lunch and reading their letters, I know all of us who was in there was touched. So thank the leadership class for putting that together, and the students at the high school for the respect and honor that they have for us veterans. So, thank you. With that, we will continue on to, what's that? Oh, students, you could go. I'm sorry. Thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Have a nice break. Happy holidays.
This time we will move to comments from members of the public. Members of the public may address the board on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards which may be completed requesting to address the board are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. All right. The governing board allows speakers to speak or play music on agendized or not agendized matters under public comment, and comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. And by law, no action may be taken on any item raised during public comment periods, and matters may be referred to the staff for placement on the future agenda of the governing board. Do we have any comments from members of the public? No cards, but we have some music.
Okay, Betty, you ready? 2 items, 3 minutes. Wait a minute, hold on. Okay. I gotta know. And if I talk too fast. Ready, set, go. Hi, I'm Gretchen Burgess, and I'm here to talk about the health and safety of our children. First, let me talk about the health of our children and a couple problems I've seen lately. I read in an article, and I wish, like our student, that I could remember exactly what the details were. But in the article, it stated that the school district was very unhappy that it had not been invited into the city's procedures and research in the cannabis issue here in town. And that upset me because not some few weeks ago, I went to an open public forum that the city held specifically about cannabis. And I was there, and there was one representative from the school. And again, I forgot the individual's name, a lovely lady. We were the only 2 people there to speak for the children. There was more representation there about how cannabis was going to affect the historical aspects and the architecture of our city. And that really upset me. Beyond that, let me move into the security of our children, and in particularly the middle point. While we're talking about cannabis, at the Rayleigh Shopping Center, there's a smokehouse there, a store that is dedicated to selling cigarettes to as many people as they possibly can. Currently, there is no regulation where these stores can be. And right now, there's a huge uptick in the amount of children who are using tobacco. And yet, I haven't seen any talk about that, either here or amongst our city leaders. Something that my son brought home to me. At Halloween, he went out trick-or-treating with 5 boys. Of those 5 boys, 3 of them were homeschooled. Every single one of them are homeschooled because at some point they were either physically or emotionally abused at the middle school. My son, since he's a part of Sources of Strength, sees this quite a bit. Thankfully, he's been labeled a little bit of a jock, and the presence of his parents and, shall I say, their assertive nature gives him a bit of a shroud of confidence about him. But even he has been grabbed in a headlock and thrown to the ground. And we had to have a conference with a principal and the parent of another child who physically assaulted him. And it worked out wonderfully. But a big part of that was because of the support he had. I would really, really like to see some efforts made towards particularly the physical safety of the children. We're doing a lot of work here with Measure C funds, but homeschooling is a lot more available to children. And those children who go to homeschooling, particularly on the computer in middle school, will continue to do it in high school. And we need to do something quick to keep these kids in our brick and mortar schools because they're so important. Above and beyond the wonderful education they get there, the social interactions and the life lessons that they learn there cannot be duplicated in homeschooling. So please, please.
Thank you.
All righty. He just had surgery yesterday, so I have to rush off, or you know I would stay here. But he made me promise I would come and say something.
Thank you.
And I got to get back to
Max,
my son.
thanks.
Thank you so much. And the song.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other public comment? Okay, we will close public comment. Move to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed. We have a motion.
Move that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes, and we got a gift.
We have a gift of $700 in cash for the for Benicia Unified School District from CAASPP Chiropractic on 1st Street in Benicia. So thank you.
It's actually the Movement Chiropractic next to SD Real Estate on the end of 1st Street. Oh, but yeah, they did a special where the first week money, everything they got came to the school district. So greatly appreciate them for looking out for our district. And both of them were raised up in Benicia and went to Benicia Middle School and High School. So thank you, Ryan, and she'll beat me up now. Forget her. Anyways, thank you, the case. Ashley, thank you. Okay, 12.1, discussion and report on Smarter Balance Assessment.
I think I'd introduce this one briefly. So the last couple of board meetings, we've been hearing about the SIPSs, the school plans, and looking at the data and having conversations about where that data comes from. And it comes from the new, relatively new assessment program called the SBAC. And then we thought it would be a good idea to spend a little bit of time with you to talk more about that testing program, how it's different than the way that we used to do it, because it's one of the most significant shifts in public education in a very, very long time. How we ask these questions, that they take them online. So we thought it would be useful for us to spend a little bit of time with you this evening, and Dr. Beetson will take us through so a few slides. Thank you, Dr. Beetson.
So thank you for having me. A few meetings ago, we talked about the content and complexity of this assessment, and I figured this was probably a good time to just refresh what we are asking our students to do and what all of those scores that I talked about a few meetings ago are based on. And it's also a good tee up because in December I will bring to you our LCAP again and tell you where we are with our implementation and our accountability system, because that is going to be publicly released soon. So tonight, what I'm hoping is that we have an understanding of the different factors that impact student achievement on standardized tests particularly, but in student performance. The shift from what we had, which was the CST, which was a pen and paper test, to our SBAC, Smarter Balanced Assessment System. I want us to really understand the complexity, because as we continue to strive to do better and to support our kids more, the shift has been slow. In the growth, we are seeing growth, but it's slower than we would like. But looking at what we're asking kids to do and how we're needing to change instruction constantly and reflect on that and what that complexity is. and then understanding what we're doing next to continue that growth. So something that's really important to know is factors that impact student performance. Demographics, we know that we have student groups that we particularly focus on that don't perform as well, and so we're paying attention to that. Teacher attitude is a proven factor about what impacts student performance on tests. Instructional alignment, so is what students do day to day looking similar to what they need to do on this assessment? Testing environment, what is the environment in which the students take these assessments? And then student experiences with testing formats, especially because this one is so very different than the old pen and paper. So what's new? Smarter Bounced is new, started in 2013 when the LCAP and started. It's based on Common Core standards, and it proposes to prepare students for 21st century learning. It's computer-based, which is very different, so they don't take any pen and paper portion of this test. It does have multiple formats, so there are multiple choice, short answer, constructed response, so where kids have to write a short answer, and then something called performance tasks, which are multi-step, very in-depth. So they will have to look at several pieces of data, listen to a podcast type of thing, watch a short video, and then construct a long response. They will have to figure out, it's like a problem solving that's multi-step and takes quite a bit. Some of them are even 2 days. The other interesting thing about this test is it's computer adapted, which means it has a cognitive ramp. So if students are doing well, it increases the rigor of the test. If students are struggling, it will back the test up so that it continually adjusts as the students go through the test. And another important piece, and this is one of the functions of it being a computer test, is that it's got something called Universal Design for Learning, or UDL is we know everything has alphabet soup. And what that means is the test is created and constructed so that as many students as possible can access it. So for some students, reading black text on a white background is really difficult, and so we have options to change the color contrast. They have options to use highlighters. For some portions of the test, it's a side-by-side, so the text is on the left and the questions are on the right, and that can be difficult for students, so students can change the layout of the test. So there's many factors that can be adapted or designed so that universally kids can access the test. Does that make sense? So that's an interesting feature that you can't do as easily with a pen and paper test. Back in the CST days, here is a sample of what a CST question would be. So 4th grade, figured we'd pick something that was relatively easy or easier. So based on the information in 4 samples, all of the following words can be used to describe avocado skin except thick, spicy, leathery, rough. So pretty much what's the definition of the word, or which one can't be used to describe it. The other portion, in the lucky cloak, which of these could not have really happened? So again, one choice based on a reading. The students have to identify one thing. A math question, which of these numbers is 5,005,014? So you're looking at your expanded form. What is 583,607 rounded to the nearest hundred? Pretty straightforward facts. So those were the types of questions that kids were asked to do before Common Core standards came into place. Now, and I think we're going to have to click. There's a practice test that we can get into, but it takes a few clicks, so you're going to have to bear with me. We had it set up, but it times us out, so we weren't.
Maybe I can ask a quick question.
Yes.
So if a kid has a 504 and needs special accommodations, are those
we can add those
to the tests? Okay.
So students that have students with disabilities that have special accommodations in their IEP, or students with a 504, we can add those accommodations in. I will tell you that many of them are built in that all students can access. That's that universal design again. But there are additional things. They can have portions of the test read to them, so they can listen to it. That could be a particular accommodation. So things like that. It's not timed. No, the CST was not timed either.
Did students opt out?
Students can, parents can opt students out. We do have an accountability, however, to have 95% or more of our students take the test. Otherwise, we get dinged in our state's accountability. We are. We're almost there. So part of the practice test is getting through, they have to have does the volume work on the test? Did you check off all of the accommodations that are happening? Is this your test? So anyway, I just wanted to give you a sampling of the types of questions. I know you could remember back to the vocabulary, choose the one right answer, choose the one sentence that summarizes the passage. So here on the left, you can see is a long passage that the students would have to read. That can be changed. Like I said, one of the accommodations is that can be full screen, so they don't have that side-by-side split. But here are some of the types of questions. Matthew and his family go to the farmer's market regularly. Pick the 2 details from the passage that best support this inference. This is one of the first. And if you scroll down, what lesson does Matthew learn in the passage? Use details from the passage to support your answer. And so this is one of those constructed responses. So they have to go back and they have to pull details. They have to create a response. The author uses the word disappointed in the passage. Click on the group of words in the sentence that best shows that idea. And so if you think back to the CST, it asked about the avocado. It was very straightforward. Which word does not describe avocado? So this is another vocabulary. And if you would hover over a section, do you see how it highlights? So they have pre-highlighted sections, so the kids have to click on which one of those clusters of words best describes what that idea is. Read the sentences from the passage. What does the word collapsed suggest? So again, it's a vocabulary. And then, so it goes on and on. I don't need to read through, but if you scroll to the bottom of this one, there was one. How does the paragraph about Matthew looking for his cowboy boots add to the plot? So you can see the complexity of what kids need to be able to do. This is 4th grade. Right, and there's another one in here where it talks about why does the author choose? Are you at the very bottom? Can you go up one? Okay, well there's, oh yes. Choose the 2 statements that best explain why the author chose to include this sentence. And some of the way these are worded really aligns with the work that we're doing, and our teachers are doing amazing work in Reading Writing Workshop, because they don't teach necessarily the book anymore, but they talk about the author's craft. Why might the author have chosen to do this? What else might have happened? And so that language is really aligning, and now it's continuing to focus our work so that kids have these continual experiences. I don't know if you want to spend time and look at a couple math ones, or if you, yeah? Okay. So, Betty, can you click us back? I don't think you can go back that way. It times you out, but you can go in, so you have this link in your presentation, and if you just can choose the grade level, and you can click through. You just go to the green box that comes up when you go to this website, and the first few pages, you just have to, is this you? Right now we're logging in as a guest, but the student's name would come up on the real test. Then you pick, we're going to pick math, and then these are all of the, you can have American Sign Language, text-to-speech, so these are some of those universal design features. Now the teachers would put them in typically on the real test. The kids don't get to pick and choose. Then, so you hit yes here. And then they have the sound check. But part of the test, the kids, on some of them, they have to listen and watch a video and then respond. So it's got multimedia and multimodal ways to respond. So here's math. So a baker has 159 cups of brown sugar and 264 cups of white sugar. How many total cups of sugar does the baker have? This one's pretty straightforward, but you want to just click you don't have to, no, you can't move forward. We're not going to look at the right answer, just put something. This is why we chose 4th grade. So look at this one. Jared is, and my eyes are, Jared is adding 3 2/6 and 7 5/6. He uses these steps to find the sum, and then they've got 4 steps. Jared made a mistake. Select the statement that corrects his mistake.
Wow.
So, and what our teachers do in the classroom to prepare students is not only to say, they do their math and they say who got the right answer and this is why it's right. They can also put up an answer, and this is part of that math talks that we heard about when Stephanie was talking the other day. They'll put up an answer and say, well, why isn't this one working? Because these are the kinds of things that kids have to do, is not only say when it is right, but what happened and why isn't it right. So just click on one. Okay, Betty says step 2. This one's another pretty straightforward one. Danielle's full-grown puppy weighs 10 times as much as her puppy. The puppy weighs 9 pounds. Enter the amount of pounds the full-grown dog weighs. Pretty straightforward. But wait, they get good. Choose the fraction model that represents the following equation. 3/7 plus 2/7 plus 1/7 plus 6/7. So this is one of the things that we're teaching kids, is not only the algorithm, but how do you represent it? What does it really mean? Because if we can't conceptually get kids to understand it, they may do fine through elementary school, but then what we see is as they get into their higher math, if they don't understand the relationships and can model it and really understand, that's when they really start to struggle as they get into that higher math. So that's why we spend so much time at the elementary school trying to have them understand the conceptual piece. And it's a big shift, and it's a shift for our parents as well, because I say, just teach them the algorithm, right? But we really want them to understand, what does it truly mean? What does it look like?
Dr. Beats, I have a quick question. I don't know if
Don't ask me the answer to this one. No, I'm kidding.
No. I don't know if staff had a response, but I always wonder when the kids are taking the test, do they find the language arts portion harder than the math, or when you walk around and you listen to them that he's nodding heads on language arts.
And the students too, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of language arts, and there's parts of the math, if we kept going, that they have to write out just like they did in the English language arts. So it does depend on the student.
High school students said language arts.
A lot of times the test, if you're doing well, it goes on and on. I've had students spend hours in 5th grade, hours taking the test. Hours.
Yeah. So
thank you.
So you get the idea. So I'd encourage you, if you're so interested, bored, sitting home, wanting to try.
I didn't say that.
Go through and just see the types of things. And then it's really fun when we walk classrooms is to match those types of activities, and we see it reflected in what our teachers are doing in the classroom. But I feel like it's important as we continue to look at our growth on our SBAC scores to know that our students have only been doing this work for a few years, and it's going to take us some time to continue to see that growth. And we are getting there, but these are the types of things we're asking our students to do. So what are our next steps to continue supporting our teachers and students in growth? One is many of our teachers are using interim assessment. So just in that same website we were looking at, teachers can go in and have their kids not just do the practice test, but they can choose like a block. If they're studying fractions, they can take a block and practice what that's like. So they're doing that more and more. Thinking back to those factors that affect student achievement is practicing in that test format. Because not only is the content difficult, it's different to take it on a computer in this way and highlight and do all the things that are asked. The other thing that they will be doing and we will be doing with them is using, Smarter Balance has come up with, they call them item specifications, and it's like a blueprint. So how is the question and the task created? What's the construct? So that our everyday language can start to sound like that. So kids are used to that language and that vocabulary because it is complex. And then the other thing that we're doing is monitoring our student groups, because we know that demographics is an issue in terms of performance, and we want to pay particular attention to our 4 student groups that we've identified, and so we will be monitoring that progress as well. So I just wanted to kind of give you that framework and construct as we head into our next presentation, which will be about how did we do on our accountability? Questions?
Are the textbooks keeping up with new format?
Well, in math, our math program that we adopted at the elementary school, Everyday Math, is aligned. The language isn't exact, but it's a lot. Teachers do a lot of that work in that language heavy portion, and we have seen really great growth in our math scores. And then Workshop doesn't really have a textbook, they use novels, but that language, again, like we said, teachers are talking with their students about what is the author's purpose, what does the author mean, so similar types of things. Science and social studies, we haven't had an adoption in many, many years.
I have to share, I watched some of the classes the other day and I was listening to some of the, in fact, I was engaging in some of the book talks with kids. And I kept thinking back to when I taught 8th grade. Carolyn, remember? And it was like the language they are using, it's like, wow, if I could have had my 8th graders talking that way. It's pretty amazing. And these are like 3rd and 4th graders. So what they can do when challenged and when presented with the information in a totally different way, it's been pretty impressive to see.
Yeah, our teachers are doing amazing work in the classroom, and now we have to figure out how to help the kids transfer what they can do in the classroom when the teacher's there having those conversations to doing that on the test, because we know they can do this work, right? Any other questions?
And that's incredible. That's what I was hearing. You know, I have to respectfully disagree with you. And this is why, and I'm sitting there going, you're only 7. And it was just pretty awesome to see and to experience. It's just amazing the tools that they're now getting and the things that they can now do. It's pretty exciting.
And I can add to that. I got an email from a 6th grade science teacher at the very beginning of the year, and she said, holy smokes, the students are having this dialogue that is unbelievable in science class. So it does seep into all content areas. And she said, I can't believe the conversations, and she mentioned, and how they disagree with what might happen in this particular science experiment, but they're having it in a discourse that is so elevated. And so we just have to now our work is to figure out, we know they can do this, how do we get them to show it?
Yeah.
You know, and so we have to
Well, and my question is, by the time they get to Carolyn in 8th grade, because these kids have now had this a couple of years, I can't imagine how powerful it's going to be and the kind of conversations you are going to be able to have with the kids. Because if you're just growing that every year and just continuing to add to their bank of information, wow, it's going to be pretty impressive as we continue to go. But yeah,
all those skills are so critical for functioning in the world.
Yes, they are.
And for functioning on a collegial level and in functioning in general with other human beings on the planet, in terms of deductive reasoning, in terms of being able to have a conversation and discuss important items, which I think is so critical.
Absolutely. And
they're learning how to think and being able to share it in a way that they can clearly articulate and express themselves. I mean, listen and learn how to listen. I mean, active listening to each other. So that's
Absolutely.
what I think is so strong.
It is. It's much more reflective of what we do. If we have a book club, we don't talk about what's this particular vocabulary word, but we talk about why might the author be doing this? And so we're trying to reflect. The work we do here is not just to pass a test, but it's, for the real world.
So much of our curriculum is really, though, now designed around this. I mean, are there things that, if this test didn't exist, that you as a professional might choose to go out in a different direction? I mean, I'm trying to figure how much of a North Star is this test? Yeah.
Right. So I will say that we do teach to the test, because the test by the state is the measurement of our standards. So the state developed the Common Core standards, then they developed this test to measure it. What we do, so I would imagine we would still be doing reading, writing workshop, because that's a great practice. It's a great instructional practice. Our math program is Common Core aligned, and so we use that. We build in pieces. We teach kids math talk and how do they have math discourse, which aligns to this. So the pieces align because the test is designed to measure the standards, and we're teaching to the standards, hence to the test. So the pieces that we're adding in are, how can we make sure that we're using some of this language in a day-to-day basis? Can I tweak how I ask a question in my class? And maybe it's not just science, English and math, but in social studies. Maybe I can ask a question in social studies about perspective in a different way so that it helps the kids be more prepared. Does that make sense?
Like grammar. Has that been de-emphasized over the last new Common Core iteration?
We teach grammar differently, and that's something that we're continuing to look at, is where is the place for grammar? And so, you know, we used to do grammar as a standalone. Sometimes it transferred in. I mean, if you think about what's the purpose for grammar, grammar's for writing and for discourse. And so how do we teach that in a more contextualized fashion? And we're having conversations about that. Where are we not making it with that, and where do we need to beef it up? And
Is that grammar not really emphasized in the SBAC? Is that not a wide?
I think in the revision pieces, right? So that's what I mean. It's in the writing. So kids will, how they write and in that grammar, but they don't.
We don't really teach them, like I know for Jake, right? They're not learning at 5th grade, you know, verb, noun, adjective.
They do it within the context, not in isolation,
right,
but they do it within the context of Writer's Workshop. And but as standalone lessons, not in that manner anymore. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Let me turn this on.
Okay, 13,
So-
consideration and approval of 2 elementary school site plans for student achievement. Leslie.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I am really pleased to be here. This is our second group of elementary schools that we will be presenting their site plans tonight. So it's our last group of site plans for our district. One of the things that we want to make sure is that you understand how our schools did last year on their school site plans and their data, what our new goals are for each school this year, and then some highlights that are included in their lengthy single plans that are going to help them achieve those goals. We talked about this in the past. The purpose is to raise academic achievement for all students, so it helps us really focus on what is the work that we need to do this year. It's all data-based. They're in a consistent format across the whole district. They're really aligned to our strategic plan, our LCAP. So we start there and we look at what the LCAP goals are, and we say, how do we feed into that so that we know our work is done better when everything is in alignment. We use multiple data points to progress monitor how we're doing towards our goals. And these are developed jointly with staffs and site councils. And so first up, I'd like to welcome Ms. Smith, principal of Mary Farmer, and she's going to talk about hers.
Welcome. Yes, so TV Land can hear you.
Hi. Mr. Wayne, first, I just want to say thank you for your service. Appreciate that. So, Clay P. Bedford said, "You can teach a student a lesson for a day, but if you can teach him to learn by creating curiosity, he will continue the learning process as long as he lives." Good evening, Benicia School Board members, Dr. Young, Dr. Beatson, Dr. Gill, and everyone else listening this evening. I'm honored and thank you for your time to be able to present to you the important highlights of last year's results and this year's new goals outlined in our single plan for student achievement. So, that's our new mascot. That's Franklin Falcon. So, I know, he's cute. Just a little attitude. So we have important work to do. Growth was made, however, the goal of 100% wasn't met. The good news in our ELA, or our literacy results, is that for KN1 intervention work, We began this year with about half as many students compared to last year. This is a significant change for the positive in teaching our K through 1 students to read. We're still working to meet the learning needs of students in our significant subgroups and all students at risk of not performing at grade level proficiency. We are closely studying results for literacy in CAASPP and local assessments. This will give us data to drive our small group focused instruction in both general classrooms and intervention settings. And as Dr. Beatson said, our growth is a little slower than we would want, but it's still growth. In math, our students demonstrated growth, however, did not meet the 5% growth target with a 1% overall growth on CAASPP. Again, we'll be determining instruction based upon results on CAASPP and local assessments for all students. So you have the results up there. I didn't get into particular results because that would take a while, so I'm just gonna go on to the next slide, if that's okay. Okay, thank you. So in a review of the current year's goals, you can see that we've broken down the growth to a more realistic goal for our students, including our most academically at risk. Increasing our overall percentage of students performing at proficient or better will only get us so far. Our students who fall into one or more of our school subgroups are the students we will continue to target very closely this year with purposeful data tracking of strategies by all grade level teams and by me. The total growth, when extrapolated over the next 5 years, will bring us to 75% of our students performing at grade level proficient or better. So what I did was I took the number of percentage points it would take over the next 5 years, like how to get to 75%, and divvied it by 5, and that's how many percentage points per year I'd like to see the growth. I think it's a little more realistic than just saying 100%. And that to me, yeah, that would be fantastic. But I think a realistic growth goal is probably the better way to go. Okay, as site-based professional development on our school site for staff, teachers will be using data collected from 1 or 2 applied strategies and check for effectiveness in increasing student success for those students most needing extra focus on their skills. This will be each grade level's dashboard for student success using their action steps and outcome measures to meet student goals. So they're just going to pick, I would like to just see them focus on one measure that they're going to take and then track that with our most at-risk students and be able to say whether or not that was effective. I think the amount of time that teachers spend teaching their students needs to be purposeful and has to help the outcome. Otherwise, I don't want to see them spending time on that. So let's see. The next page. Our highlights, my favorite part. Okay. So, oops, I had one more. I'm sorry, Betty. I skipped one. So PBIS. So that was our next goal for climate and culture. And PBIS is in full swing right now. And students are showing that they fully understand our behavioral rules, the 3 Bs, and how the new accountability system is working. Staff has worked tirelessly to make sure their students understand and practice the new expected behaviors. The students love the generous rewarding of Falcon Flyers. So everybody has them to acknowledge students who are doing the right thing and following the 3 Bs. We tell them what they're getting the ticket for, and that's part of the whole practice. And then it goes in the classroom bucket for a drawing, and then after that, all the tickets get dumped in a big box, and I'll get to that in a minute. So, okay. The weekly acknowledgments are motivating. getting their names read over the school PA system at the end of the week. So tracking the data will help us determine our next steps in rolling out fully our PBIS practice. Currently, we're preparing our parent survey to help with collecting input and seeing how we're doing. We also celebrated filling up our reward ticket box halfway with these. Everybody on site got these cool little bracelets. It has our 3 Bs on it. So thank you. It was awesome. The kids love them. And these, let's see. What is really amazing about this is that the rules are so easy to remember. They're simple. Be safe, be kind, be responsible. And they do support our district's wildly important goal of keeping and supporting positive school culture. So now we have highlights. And so, oh, thank you. We're excited and grateful to continue our designation as Teachers College Reading and Writing Project Affiliate School. We've had 1 training already this year for K through 2 and are looking forward to our upper grade training in January. We have begun an attendance contest supporting the district WIG of increasing our REACH score by rewarding the class with most 100% attendance days each month. And they can earn a popcorn party and extra recess time. And Mrs. DeLorfus' class won for October, where her class had 18 out of 20 days 100% attendance. So that was pretty cool. They were very excited. And like I said, we've begun implementation of PBIS. It's a very smooth start, teaching students and staff the 3 Bs, be safe, be kind, be responsible. We're also using online data records to study the effectiveness of our strategies. And at our last check, 100% of our students knew their 3 Bs. We also continue our work with Bowena in the schools and In Harmony Music. Additionally, we have opened up our school programs, after-school programs, which include now strings and guitar to students attending at the other elementary schools in the district. So those are our highlights. And please feel free to come visit our school anytime. And we want to invite you to experience the Falcon Way. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And now I'd like to invite Mr. Steve Slater to come on up and talk about Matthew Turner and the site plan for that school.
Good evening. I want to thank the board and Dr. Young and our cabinet for having me here tonight. I am honored and very proud to be the principal of Matthew Turner Elementary, and very proud to be part of this outstanding team at Benicia Unified. I also want to express my appreciation for our site council, our staff, and just on the diligent work, the time and the skill that they put into creating with me, the site plan. And it has the school community's best interest at heart. So when I look at our We Believe as far as our district, some of our goals, education is a collaborative effort among students, staff, parents, and guardians. And I feel like this process of putting the site plan really embraces that. So let's take a look at last year's data. This is what we learned, and even though we did not meet all our goals, there were some significant improvements that I want to talk about. So looking at English language arts, there was a bit of a dip on the CAASPP test. Our goal was 70%, and we ended up having 62% of our students met or exceeded expectations. However, with one of our goals also was to boost our socioeconomic disadvantaged subgroup of those students. We wanted to get from We actually we started at 20% last year, and at this test they got up to 39% that met and exceeded. So we're proud about that. We worked very hard to get to that point. In math, pretty good scores with that, with problem solving. We wanted to focus on that because we know that's a college and career readiness skill, and we know that that's what they're going to need to have those skills to thrive in the 21st century. So we had 86% of our students exceeded, met, or were near those, meeting that expectation, and that is it was good growth from the year before. And considering in 2014 to 15, we were 58%. So that's a good jump right there to the 86%. We still want to continue to grow in that area. Our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, again, started at 16% the year before. It was a good, definitely improved there, up to 43% in last year's test. So talking about with Dr. Young in part of our admin council, our meetings that we talk about, culture is king. And so we give out a parent climate survey every year, and we use the data from that survey to kind of drive some of the work with our site plan. One of the things we worked on last year was we really wanted to grow in the area of cultural and diversity opportunities for our families and for our students, along with curriculum and also our family nights with parent community engagement. And then we improved there from 44% to 82% of our people surveyed agreeing or strongly agreeing that our school supports that. And regarding homework, didn't have a specific question on that, but I was reading the previous year's survey, and there's a lot of comments about homework and needing more clarification and where is it, or it's too much. So we did a lot of work this year on the past year on communicating to parents about that. It's in some of my coffee chats. I work with staff on it, and I know that as a district we worked really hard to come up with our district a new district policy regarding homework, and there were very few, 2 comments about the homework this year on that, and there's quite a list of comments that the parents list, and homework was not one of the concerns. So happy in that. And regarding homework, we want it to be meaningful and purposeful, and not knock a family off its feet every night. So we're happy in that. And again, our focus with homework, a lot of it is reading, and also doing some of that online math with them. Rigor of instruction is part of the site, is part of the survey, and we wanted to get in the 80s. We got 72% parents agreed or strongly agreed that their student was challenged at the just right level. So that's definitely an area we still want to continue to improve this year. So going through last year's goals, here are areas we did not meet. We want to roll them into this year's goal. So for overall ELA, we want to get 70% of our students meeting or exceeding expectations on the CAASPP test. And in math, we're stronger on that, and I just feel is kind of overseeing, looking over the students taking the test. They seem a little more agile with taking the math. So I think that would be a reasonable goal to get up to 75% this year, meeting or exceeding. Ideally, I'd love to be in the 80s in ELA and in math, but it's gonna be a process. We can go up 4 or 5 points every year. We'll actually hear 8 and 9. That would be a good start on our goal there. And to be quite honest, I love this test. I know it's a challenge, and I could see everybody's faces when they looked at the different examples. But I think if we can get our students to think critically, think harder on these tests, and just build up their confidence. And the more that they are experienced with these type of problems, I think in the future they're going to be much more prepared. So talking about these also with that's our overall goal. And as far as raising the achievement gap, that's what we've been working on as a district, and we certainly want to continue to do that at our school. So within our 4 subgroups that we want to identify and focus on are ELs. Last year they jumped up to 40% in English language arts being met or exceeded. I want to get that up to 50% this year. And also in math, where they were 47% last year, we want to get that up to 50%. I figure we go into the year 2018-19 and 50% of our English language learners are meeting or exceeding on the test. And be pretty happy with that we're moving in the right direction. With our students with disabilities, definitely need to improve here. We didn't have any students that met or exceeded the standard on that test. So we have a goal. We want to get up to 20% there, and we've had some really concentrated conversation in leadership and as a staff about how do we address that? How do we that's got to be we've got to definitely need to improve. Math was 14%. Want to get that up to 20%. And again, it's just a start to say, okay, we're 20. Let's continue to move forward there. Okay, our African American population last year on the English language test, 40%. Want to get that up to 50%. And with math, they scored a 47%, which is a big jump. But we want to get up to 50% by June 2018. So socioeconomically disadvantaged students, we're proud of that we were able to nearly double our ELA population. And in math, we did double it, and then some. Well, we definitely want to get both of those. The ELA to 45% and the math to 50. You're thinking, why not just both 50? But as far as English, we're finding that we have a couple new students who just arrived in the United States, and you're seeing, wow, they're definitely seeing a lot of math skill, but for them with picking up that language, it's a steep climb, and so really we're just trying to immerse them in English and get them ready. So we're realistic with that as well. With culture and climate, with the respondents, we definitely want our respondents and our families to, number one, feel that their child is challenged every single day in the classroom. And we are also going to rephrase the question so that it's clear, because after we gave the question, we're like, well, maybe my child is really struggling, so it's not at their just right level, or maybe it needs to be more challenging. So we're going to rephrase that question, but regardless, we want that up to 80%. Respondents to the school site survey will also rate our cultural and diversity opportunities at Matthew Turner from 82% to 85%. We want to continue to move in that direction. That's something we find very important. We had a World Cultural Day last year, so had a Grandparents' Day this year as well, and our World Cultural Day will be in January. So again, we want to build inclusiveness and just make all our families feel welcome and valued at our school. So I guess we can move on to the highlights. I have this one highlight up here because I had a conversation with Diane when she came to visit Matthew Turner, and like, well, we got these scores in each grade, but how are they doing as they move through? And this was one highlight that I was really proud of, is that 78% of our fifth graders met or exceeded expectations in language arts on the CAASPP test. And this was a 15% increase from their third grade scores. So, and that's what we want to see. You get 78%, nearly 80% of fifth graders going on in middle school, meeting or exceeding expectations on that test. I think that's great. And 45% were exceeding. So think it's a tribute to all the culminated effort of all our teachers, obviously our 5th grade teachers, and that the program, that Readers Writers Workshop program, really, 3 years of that, and I'm seeing that. I had one teacher last year because we were doing some of the item specifications, getting ready for the test. And you know what? We don't need this because our unit of study is actually more rigorous than that. So I did. Come on, we can still practice. Let's go. We gotta still practice these. But I mean, that was a really compliment to the program. Also, focusing on closing the achievement gaps. How are we going to do that? Number one, I think we really need to build relationships with all our students and allow them to feel obviously welcome and connected and know that we have high expectations for everyone. And we started that off really, I know a big part of one of my goals and something that I really take a lot of pride in is the faculty meetings and our staff development days. I want them to matter. I want them to be meaningful and purposeful, and that's one of the things that we focused on day one was making those really, really powerful connections with our students, because really that's how we got into, I know I got into education, was being inspired in those connections that teachers made. Second, monthly team meetings. I'm going to meet each week with a different grade level, and we have a list of the students in those 4 subgroups, and we're going to go through that list. How are they doing? How did they do on their last? How was their last writing assignment? How did they do on the last benchmark? Are they engaged? Are they focused? How is their attendance? What can I do to support? Are they getting the intervention they need? Are they becoming a behavior problem? So just having those conversations about our students. We really need to implement the curriculum that we have with Fidelity, with the Everyday Math program and our Readers and Writers workshops. So really excited that we have our coaches. Colleen Leong is an amazing resource at our school. She's working with throughout, our TK through 5th grade with different teachers on different strategies, instructional strategies, and very helpful. We're also using the SBAC item blueprints to design our daily teaching. And it's like, not the old days where you're just running off packets of questions. But no, we're bringing in at leadership. We have a specific thing we want to work on. Maybe it's informational text, and they're bringing it back to their grade levels. Okay, how can we incorporate or weave these questions into the programs that we have now? So those are some of the things we're working on. Again, building leadership capacity. I think it's one of the greatest things that I learned as a first-year principal is that more that you can do that, build capacity and find your people that are going to really step up and drive the work, the better. PBIS, big shout out for our PBS team because they've been amazing. They have rewritten our student parent handbook. They have created a behavior matrix, school-wide behavior matrix. They've created signs that we have in each classroom with our 4 Matthew Turner core values: being a role model, being respectful, being responsible, being safe, and being kind. We have monthly character assemblies, one which I'm going to orchestrate tomorrow morning. That's another way that we just keep going over the language, and it really is a framework so we can all be on the same page, hoping that the better that we grow with PBIS, we'll see those results with our academic scores. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
It was nice to see you on campus today. I had Jake's teacher conference, and it was a fascinating format. I had not experienced that before. It was student-led. So the format was Jake led the meeting, having worked up a worksheet where, based upon behaviors, he assessed himself, and then assessed what his teacher thought of those same, he thought his teacher would think of those same criteria, And and then it was evidence-based. So he went through each one, the rationale for his rating, what he thought his teacher's rating was going to be, and why. And he had a folder of exhibits. And then the teacher, Mrs. Seymour, sat down with his report card and went over what she thought and how they aligned. It was a really engaging format. I didn't know if that was something unique to Mrs. Seymour's classroom, to Matthew Turner, to the district, but it was fabulous. And the engagement and the level of dialogue, you were talking earlier about the language that Jake was using, about his use of metaphors and similes and getting to the heart of story. And Dad, that's a metaphor for fifth. And so it was just great. And I just thought it was a great practice and something that if it's not done elsewhere, should be expanded upon.
Well, at our last collaboration meeting with all the fifth grades, that was one of the topics that I know that our fifth grade team shared, is the success that they're having with those student-led conferences. So I believe it's going to, hopefully, definitely, spread throughout the district. How did Jake feel after that?
He was nervous in the morning, and then I think he just got this boost of confidence and enthusiasm afterwards. It was
that's great to hear.
It was so great.
Great to hear.
And it'd be great to have a demonstration to others in the district. I think this would be a wonderful thing. And I thought about it. I brought it back. I learned, thinking, we give performance reviews to our employees. This is a better way of doing it than what we do, right? Than just telling them, here's what I thought of you, right? Yeah. And I don't know why Principal Kleinsmith, why even at the high school level you wouldn't engage the students rather than just sending home a report card, and this type of dialogue with them about how they think they're doing and what their perceptions of what they think they're doing match with what our perceptions are of how they think they're doing, and what can we do. I mean, at the end of it was, Jake was supposed to ask or tell us what we could do to help him, support him, and same with the teacher, what could she do to help support him. And it was really a mature process where it was terrific. I congratulate you and the site, and then back to the culture of doing that and giving the kind of the creativity and the innovation. To say I'd never seen it before.
A quick point on that too, like there's a bunch of research that backs that up. There's an academic researcher, his name is John Hattie, and he's written these books about the things that we do in education that affect student achievement. And the one, I think it's like right at the top, it's self-reporting grades.
Yeah.
And its effect on students' engagement around the learning process and being aware of it.
Yeah, it'd be a great thing if it's being piloted at Turner in the fifth grade, it'd be great to look at expanding it.
Yeah, we had one teacher who started a few years ago. It was actually part of her evaluation where she wanted to start piloting that, and then it's expanded, it sounds like, to the whole fifth grade at Turner. But our principals are having that conversation.
It'd be great.
I'm sure there's other classrooms, but it is not right now it's not a school-wide thing, but or district-wide thing rather, but there are other teachers that do student-led conferences as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a action item, so do we have a motion to approve these?
I move that we approve the 2 site plans as presented tonight.
A second?
A second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those passes. Moving on, consideration approval of resolution 171806, establish a new special reserve fund for capital outlay projects. Mr. Rahill.
Good evening. Yeah, we're asking you to consider and approve the resolution to create the new special reserve fund for capital outlay projects. This would accumulate the fund monies to fund and construct capital outlay for capital outlay purposes. 2 such current projects would be the $90,000 annual set aside for the future renovation of the stadium when that is needed 10 to 15 years out, as well as the $5.5 million district-wide solar project, which is being funded by a 0% state loan and a low-interest clean renewable energy bond. So both of those projects could be tracked and recorded separately in this separate capital outlay fund 40. So we're allowed to do this, and that fund is Fund 40, which does account for the acquisition or construction of major capital facilities and other major capital assets. There would still be the smaller type assets that could be accounted for in the general fund. And this would assist us with our trend data from year to year so that we can keep track of the capital outlay projects in Fund 40. This isn't a bond fund. We do have a separate bond fund, which is accounting for those monies separately. We're not allowed to put these funds in the bond fund, so we have to create this Fund 40. So we are recommending for the board to approve the board resolution tonight and establish this new school fund for our district, which is the Special Reserve Fund for capital outlay projects.
By passing this resolution, are we limited to the designated, like the stadium, or for example, the portables, so that we know they have a lifespan? Could we also plan for replacement of portables so we don't have portables that are 20 years beyond their lifespan?
Definitely, yes.
And that would be able to go into this. So as we do big projects like that, we would be able to allocate their lifespan and then amortize it into the fund to replace those things?
Yes.
That'd be great.
So Tim, just to clarify, Fund 40 is going to be one fund for all major capital outlays, or is it a separate fund for the stadium and Fund 40 separate for the?
We'll have we would have one separate Fund 40, and within that Fund 40, we would use separate codes for separate projects, so we can track each major project separately by a code within the one Fund 40. And I just wanted to also repeat myself. There's also another separate fund, the bond fund, which is accumulating the Measure S funds. So this Fund 40 would accumulate the funds that aren't the bond fund.
Non-bond related projects.
Yes.
So this is, in essence, the maintenance of the building and the work that we're doing with our Measure S bond that we said we wanted to make sure we had funds available when the time came to repair things.
Yeah, the major renovations, okay. Not the ongoing operating
Correct.
Maintenance,
Just
but the
the
major replacement and renovation of that would be one such project in Fund 40.
Just wanted to make sure.
I like this idea. When I was part of my homeowner association, we had lifespan for everything that was common areas that we were responsible for, and we knew we had funds set aside that it was only designated for that. So, all the roofs, we knew that lifespan was 20 years, that it's, and we increased how much it would be. So in 20 years, so we weren't taxing more people to get funds when we already had in our yearly budget of covering that. So we knew, if it was a 20-year lifespan, we had a little bit of money every year going into that versus we're at year 20, they need to be replaced, and now we're gonna have to charge everybody $30,000 to do all this. So it's nice to be able to see ahead the expenses and be saving for that now and putting that aside where it's there for that project. And I wish we would have done that for portables and other things instead of spending $50 million on $150 million of stuff that needs to get done. So, any other questions?
So I have a question. So the money that we're putting into this savings account, essentially, is it coming, how does it look? Is it coming from the general fund, or is there a certain amount per?
Yeah, so the two
How are
projects,
we going to be putting money in?
So right now, the two projects mentioned are the stadium major renovation in the future, and that is coming out of the routine restricted maintenance account, which we are allowed to set aside some of that money. So instead of that just hanging out there each year because it doesn't get spent, it could be set aside in Fund 40.
That's not money from the bond.
That is not money from the bond. And then the second major capital project is this district-wide solar project. And those are funds that came from a 0% loan, and then about $3 million. And then as much as we need of $2.5 million is a low interest rate loan, about 1.5%.
So those are coming from those funds.
Yeah, those would be coming from those borrowing funds.
And the solar is basically paying for itself as well as saving us money and
yes,
in the long run. Any other questions? Any public questions, comments?
So who decides that the $90,000 a year for the maintenance of the field, the new field, and who decides what gets to be used in terms of this Fund 40 money?
Would you like me to answer? So when the district approved the stadium project as a bond project, it was also discussed and directed at that point in time to set aside $90,000 a year for the future major renovation and repair of the stadium, and that those funds would be, we're required to set aside 3% for routine restricted maintenance. And so that was already a budgeted item. And so within that existing budget, we used $90,000 to set that aside for the future renovation and major replacement.
I recall that was the architect and the consultant's estimate of what the cost would be to replace the present value cost of replacing the turf, which only has a 10-year lifespan.
But I mean, like, if there are things in the district that are far higher need, like how, so this was determined in the language of the bond?
No, this was, so we, as I understand it, this is not money coming out of the classroom. This is money that goes towards maintenance. And we dedicated $90,000 of the maintenance money to be saved towards the future replacement.
The board
As a
decided
policy.
that as a board.
With the concept being we were putting this big outlay to build this project and we wanted to make sure it's maintained over time. It doesn't become one of those
You don't want to give
relics that we can't
$10 million
deal with
bill
later.
to somebody else.
Okay, even though there may be like
There's
seriously
other
unsafe
serious projects we have to
conditions.
deal with, but we don't want to create more of those going forward.
Trying to undo the sins of the past by having $150 million of capital improvements that need to be made that were never budgeted for.
Right.
We discussed as a board that if we engage in capital projects, we would be able to afford them going forward and sustain them. But we've now inherited as a board a $150 million deficit, essentially, of projects that we cannot fund.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do that anymore. If we make improvements, we're going to pay for them in the future.
Be able to sustain.
Thank you. Carolyn Fields, Benicia Middle School.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, this is the resolution. We have a motion.
Move approval of the resolution as proposed.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Holguin?
Yes.
Trustee Monette?
Yes.
Trustee Morgan?
Yes.
President Wing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Consideration and approval resolution 17-18-07, support of career technical education facilities, program projects, and applications. Going to be, can you tee that up?
If I could just, just tee it up real quick. And we have our bond director, Roxanne Egan, and our Benicia High School principal, Brianna Kleinschmidt, who are, I don't want to steal their thunder, but they're going to talk to you about an opportunity, and that's just what it is right now, an opportunity for some facility grant funds through the state for our career tech education project at the high school. It's something that the state has developed. They continue to support career tech education in our high schools in California. And this, right now, they have some operational grants for their industrial arts group, their medical careers, and their drama and dance art programs. And so they're going to focus on that last one today with these facility funds that they'll talk to you about. And one last thing is that the potential could be $3 million from the state towards this facility. The district would have to match that potentially with bond funds or other facility funds. And so this is just an opportunity. It's a grant application, and we're under no obligation to accept that if we are so fortunate to be granted the opportunity in the future to do that. We'd definitely be subject to further conversations, be brought back to the board, go through the steering committee. But this is the first step. And with that, we'll call both of Roxanne and Brianna up to the podium.
Good evening. Well, I'm excited to be back in front of you and talking about something that I'm very passionate about, which is our CTE programs, our career technical education programs. We were really fortunate this year. We actually sort of had a surprise in that our dance teacher, Samantha Sanchez, earned her CTE credential over the summer. And so what that meant was that our long-standing program of dance within our performing arts department is able to now be a CTE pathway. So for all of our students who are currently and in the future will be taking our dance courses, our Dance 1 and Dance 2, they will be fulfilling a pathway, which is very exciting. And it's actually a pathway that last month was named one of the top 6 sectors for growth for young adults who are either coming right out of high school or out of a 2-year college to have a good starting paying job. And that they see growth for the next 10 years. So we see that as something that sort of inspires this work. And I have to say this sort of came together and we thought, how could we pass up this opportunity? We have a facility that, because we now have the CTE pathway with dance, which falls under performing arts, that makes our performing arts building a CTE facility. We are aware, because of the facility's master plan process and our different tiers of need, that that's a facility that does have identified needs. And so we looked at how we might be able to use a grant for this, a grant opportunity for CTE facilities and make the most of that opportunity. So as Mr. Rahal mentioned earlier, Prop 51 includes some specific funds for construction or modernization of CTE facilities and equipment for comprehensive high school sites in California. So it's very specific. And so right now they're going through an application process. The application is due November 29th, and it's quite a rigorous process with you have to have a minimum of 105 score out of 141 possible points on 8 different criteria, and provide quite a bit of information. And so we're going through that now, and with your approval, hope to submit that to see if we might be fortunate enough to have the opportunity to move forward. We would be looking at a grant for new construction and a grant for modernization. They require that those be separate. So any additional square footage would be considered new construction, and any work to existing square footage would be considered modernization. And so using the facilities master plan that already exists, we've been able to tie that into this work. So this isn't really outside of the work that's been happening or outside of the bond, but our hope is that it really enhances that work and provides really the opportunity to sort of double some of those monies. And this is where I'll remember, hopefully, to forward the slides for you. And so with the designation of that CTE facility, with this new pathway, we've also then created an advisory board. That's a requirement for the CTE pathway and for the grant. We had an advisory board meeting, and we had, I believe, 15 members show up, and that was a mix of stakeholders, students, parents, community members, our performing arts teacher from the middle school, to really talk about this opportunity and look at how this might benefit the pathway at the high school and benefit students to move on into this industry sector beyond high school as well. And so what I want to talk a little bit about is how specifically students would benefit from this opportunity. The Performing Arts Building was built in 1979, or at least that's the date on the blueprints that we pulled out. And much of that building is original to 1979, including the lighting and some of the major fixtures that we're working with our students today. And so the idea that that's a career technical education facility that's up to industry standards is a little bit concerning, along with the safety issues that were identified as part of the master facilities plan process as well. At the time it was built, we had less than 800 students. We now have over 1,600 students, so you can imagine that the size has some impact there as well. There's been some renovation to the building, but not much. 1999, there was renovation to the seating in the auditorium, and in 2004, some renovations for ADA compliance. But other than that, it has not been brought up to industry standards or to modern modernizations of what you might see in other facilities, including other school facilities. In visiting other schools in our area and actually outside of the state, I had the opportunity 2 years ago to go on the band music exchange program, and I plan to go again in February. And we visited several other schools, high schools, and a few colleges, and it was very interesting to see what other communities are offering to their performing arts program. We're still working with our original class sizes, with some of our original equipment in those classrooms. We are working with issues with wiring and lighting. And so this really provides the opportunity to upgrade those items as needed, hopefully even maybe enlarge those spaces so that when we have a dance class of more than 26 students, they can all fit on the stage at once. And so the opportunity there is really exciting. I might have forwarded one slide too many, I apologize. And so the opportunity for Benicia Unified School District, at this point, because it is an application process, it's a no-risk opportunity. We would still have the opportunity to accept or not accept that based on the ability to match those funds and where that might come from. And I think others will talk more about that. This is an established program. So this isn't a new pathway that we're creating. This is something that we've had for many years. And I think also a bonus in that not only does this touch the CTE pathway of dance, but of course, because of the space, also our theater programs, drama, musical theater, and all of our band programs, really our student body at large, because of the other events that we hold there in the Performing Arts Building. We hold some of our district events there and community events as well. And so there's great opportunity there for us. In the facilities master plan, yes, yeah, sort of the prioritization of those projects. And so I'll leave us with that information. There's probably some questions and other information that I think will be provided. I'll leave you with pictures, actually. There we go.
So this is going to add, she did a great job of painting the picture relevant to the space in their program. I was just going to give some overview, kind of contextual information of how the program runs. So the applications, as she said, are due at the end of November. They announced their first scoring in February. That initial scoring doesn't mean that you were awarded the grant. It just says you had to score higher than 105 to even be considered anymore. After that, they go to another process if you made the first cut, and then they would advise us by June of 2018 if we were awarded the grant. If the grant application is not awarded, then they can choose to reapply in the fall of 2018. And I guess just to back up a little bit, she was talking about Prop 51. So we, as a district, are applying for Prop 51 monies, which is a large kind of facilities, can apply to everything. But additionally, there's Prop 51 monies that are just for this CTE program. So they don't compete against each other. It's not that if you get this, it cuts down your other monies. They're totally separate. So then the grant can be awarded in full or in partial scope. They decide however much they're going to give you. And then if the district, the decisions that would come to us in June would be to choose to accept the grant and identify matching funding sources, decline acceptance of the grant. If I mean the board, on behalf of the district, chose to accept the grant, then at that point, we would have to, in June, identify what was going to be our matching money sources. In conversations we've had with staff right now, we should know by then how much of the other Prop 51 monies we got. And the conversations have been that if the other monies didn't match the level of the required matching amount for the CTE grant, the intent wouldn't be to cut projects, like elementary projects that have currently been identified with the other bond money. So they would kind of be going hand in hand with each other, and we could make the decision at that point.
Okay, so just to stop for a second and clarify for me. So Brianna said there's 2 grants that you're applying for.
Mm-hmm.
if we were approved and say the total of the Prop 51 money coming in doesn't match the total of the 2 grants coming in, okay, would we be able to say no to one and get the other one?
So it's a.
Or
it's a really good
are they
question.
so tied together that they could not be separated?
We have a consultant who advises us on these things, and I don't have the exact information on that.
Mhm.
It's something I need to check into and find out more. But tonight, all we would be deciding is like, yes, can we apply for this grant, which opens up doors that would allow us opportunity should the monies arise. And between now and then, I certainly can get more information and bring it back to you. Or we could have Laura, even that's our consultant's name, attend, and she's really great.
Okay. I just would like to know that it is a conversation because you're right. We are looking at elementary, so that's a real important piece for me, that we be able to
identify,
break it, or is it a package deal?
And some of the conversations, and this is kind of tangential and nobody would have to decide tonight, but in the bond monies that were allocated, so if none of this were approved or happened, then, you know, the public arts or performing arts always have a need and some want, but there's a line item in the Measure S, it's much less, it's like $400,000 that's been earmarked for the high school gym floor, and then some, so I'm just sharing ideas that have been talked about, but it would all obviously have to be approved through the steering committee and would come back to you ultimately for your approval. But in other conversations, it's been that maybe the default, if this isn't awarded, would be that those monies could be directed towards the performing arts building to give them, at least that would be the backup plan for giving them some improvements. And then we would look for some future funding or other things for the gym. So just for clarification and ease of not confusing the two, I tend to call this particular thing the CTE award, even though it's a subset of 51, and all of our other facilities grants we're applying for as Prop 51, so there's not a confusion in the nomenclature. But so for this award, they're asking, their submittal is for $3 million, which would be a matching district if all of it was awarded of $3 million, so for a total of $6 million. The overall Prop 51 that could apply to all schools, within our district. We've got some preliminary numbers, and they're preliminary. We have no proof or warranty that anything will come until it's actually awarded. We're hopeful it would be, I'd say at a minimum 3 million, could be as high as 6 or up to 8 or 9. So it all depends on how your steps go through and how it gets ranked and what you get. But I'm hesitant. I hate to throw out numbers because I feel like we're just setting us up for failure, but it is hopeful right now. It feels optimistic.
So,
A quick question. Oh, go ahead.
no, I just wanted to say, for the sake of our viewers, could you remind everybody what the Prop 51 monies are?
Thank you.
And why we would be getting some money back?
And then maybe to add on to that as well, that part of the 51 application was, get in line as soon as possible. And is the getting in line as early as possible commensurate with the quality of your application, or they go together? Does that make sense? But you can add that in.
Yeah. I'm going to start with Diane's question. So just to kind of paint the picture of the different money sources, the Measure S, right, was approved by our voters. The town and the residents, property owners, all pay an increased property tax to fund that. That's approved and passed. All of those monies stay separate, as Tim was saying earlier. They're their own fund. Prop 51 does not impact any of the property taxes in the city. It's not anything that has to be voted on. It was approved by the state. It's part of the state funding. So it is an allocation that comes down from the state that was granted. So it does not require a public, it doesn't impact the property taxes or the anything like that to the local citizens.
We just had to put in an application requesting funding from 51 based on our needs.
Yes, and it's a really complicated process.
Our facility needs.
Yes, they do we have a consultant who assists us, and so my version is not nearly, she's really the one who handles it, but it's very complicated. They do a whole analysis of all of your existing buildings. If you used any of those buildings prior for state funding, then they're not eligible to get this funding for. If you did improvements to them and those improvements were never submitted to get matching monies, then you can use them. So even if the improvements were done previous, you can use that as a baseline for the amount that you request and get for the Prop 51 monies now. And so we've been going through this whole process, and part of it to get in line, I guess this would speak more to Charles's question, is that it's really not an easy step to get in line. You submit to CDE, you have to first identify the project that you completed, or else that you would be completed, and there's different ways they track. Once CDE creates it as a project, it gets passed on to OPSC, and OPSC is the one who actually would determine the award amount. So,
and what are those? CDE? I know. Man, what's but our viewers don't know what
California Department of Education, and
we are the world of academics.
And
yes.
what's the other one?
Office. Go ahead, Betty. It's the office of the. I'm going to blank on it. Thank you. So it's a multi-step process, and you can't really just submit a blank page and say I'm in line. You have to really have all your ducks in a row, and they will certainly feel free to kick you right out of line if you don't. So we're going through those steps right now, but it's not like at every single level there's more information and more stuff to do. It's not like, oh, you just filled out that little application, checked your box, and we're all done. So there's a lot of work going on with that.
So this resolution, the CTE resolution, so if we do get granted, but we don't have matching funds for the whole thing, would we get the amount of money that we have matching funds for?
I think that speaks to Diane's question, because we can only accept an award. So in June, we would have to identify what the source is for.
And they will fund for what we can match.
So Prop 51 does not fund, it doesn't count directly as the match, but Prop 51 can fund other projects that we have Major S identified. So if we got, I'm just going to make up some numbers, $6 million of Prop 51 money, and you could use that money to fund $6 million of, let's say, elementary school projects that are currently earmarked, and then you could use that $6 million of Measure S to do the matching money for your. It's kind of a shell swap, but that's how it works. You technically can't use Prop 51 to match Prop 51.
And
yeah,
it's all still facility projects. It's not. You're the only salary that's taken out of any of that.
There are no salaries, right, to be allowed with any of that funding.
Well, and Prop 51 is actually, we did pass it as voters for the state of California.
True.
So it actually is on all of our statements when we get our tax bill every once this money starts being given. So we're all paying for that too.
No, that's true. It's not
just,
a local bond. Thank you for
yes,
that. Yes,
right. But I mean, we all voted for this. Again, it was another opportunity where everyone came together and supported schools one more time. So absolutely, it was a pretty amazing gift.
Any other questions?
And we don't have to pay it back. The district, the state's paying back the bond.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. Yeah.
Any public questions? No? Okay. This is a resolution. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I motion that we approve Resolution 17-1807 as presented and approved to apply for the CTE Facilities Grant for new construction and to apply for the CTE Facilities Grant for renovation.
Okay, it's resolution, so roll call vote.
Clerk Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Holguin?
Yes.
Trustee Monette?
Yes.
Trustee Morgan? President Wing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you.